We get a little crazy when it comes to quarterback tear downs at times. Joe Burrow to Kyler Murray, I don't see much of a difference at all. Tyreek Hill, I can't do that for 2 seconds. I think this is a pretty one-sided deal in my opinion. Brandon, where are you at?
Yeah, I mean, Joe Burrow, Kyler Murray, they're pretty similar. So 2 seconds, and one's a middle second, one's a 25 second for Tyreek Hill. Yeah, give me that side. Tyreek Hill, Kyler Murray all day.
Yeah, not close.
Okay, let's get it. Bitch, let's get it. Woo!
Welcome on in, everyone. It's me, Ty DeClaire, at Ty DeClaire44 on X, on Discord, all over the place. This week, I got my man back on the show, Brandon at BG-C on X, and we're back for another edition of the Destination Devy Trade Show. Brandon, we got some big names in the trades today. You know, we're going to try and break it down, understand the why behind some of these deals. But how you doing?
I'm doing well. It's nice and warm here. It's summertime. It's always wonderful in New England. And, you know, as it gets heating up, I think also our trade shows get to heat up. We got some good deals on tap. And, you know, dynasty markets are starting to warm back up. People are getting away from their hiatus, I guess, if you could call it, right?
Yeah.
After the draft, kind of like that post-hibernation nap. And now people are waking up. Deals are being made. And let's see what we got today.
Yep. If you want your trades on this show, patreon.com/allgas. Join the best community in all of Dynasty Fantasy Football. My personal opinion, of course. And if you want all the good tools, articles, keep up with everything happening at Destination Devy, head on over to destinationdevy.com. But yeah, Brandon, let's hop back into this. So it's a 12-team super flex, 4-point passing touchdown, PPR, 1-5 tight end premium, start 10. Pretty, you know, your basic bare bones league. They have Love as their other quarterback. They wanted to get some more rushing from their quarterback, and Tyreek is Tyreek. I agree with that. I agree with that. He's the new wide receiver 1C alongside Lamb and ASRB. I mean, yeah, if you have Lamb and Amon-Ra, add in a Tyreek Hills, that's a pretty easy arm pull for me to make me feel fantastic about my wide receiver room. And shouts out to Scott and Tommy on their show that they did earlier this week. And really, I think it showed that you can construct wide receiver in a multitude of ways. And if I have like 3 really locked in guys that I feel good about, I can take on a lot more risk and build a little bit differently. So just to move from Burrow to Kyler, like I said, end of the day, I don't see a lot of differences or like a world of difference, especially in 2024 between the quarterbacks. And I will trade 2 seconds for Tyreek Hill any day of the week. You can even keep the 4th if you want to. How did this one hit you when you first saw it?
Yeah, I mean, looking at the scoring format, the 4-point passing touchdown, I mean, it kind of already begins to even lean further towards the rushing quarterback. So that, in my eyes, even if you kind of feel like Burrow and Murray are kind of in a similar tier, but maybe Burrow's a little higher in that tier and Murray's a little bit lower in that tier for your personal preference, the fact that it's a 4-point passing touchdown, that kind of just equals it out, right? Kind of just negates that whatever boost Burrow would have over Murray in that tier. And like you said, 2 seconds or Tyreek Hill. If we're playing in a vacuum and we're trying to win here, having Lamb, Amon-Ra, and Tyreek Hill as your 3 wide receivers in a start 10, like you have a positional advantage because you have arguably 3 of the top 4 or 5 dynasty wide receivers currently. And anybody who has to face you in a week in, week out basis is going to have to deal with Lamb, Amon-Ra, and Tyreek in your lineup because you're not going to probably bench any of those 3.
Mm-hmm. And doesn't getting Tyreek Hill, like, one, you're getting for, like, again, I see this as 2 seconds for Tyreek Hill. One, don't you feel like you can move Tyreek Hill for that plus in season, right? Just because he's not scoring right now, someone wants to move off that, you know, the risk that comes with Tyreek Hill. Okay. But one, I bet you can move him for more in season. And 2, doesn't that make CeeDee Lamb and Amon-Ra a little bit more flexible on your roster? Don't you feel like you can now make maybe more move one of those guys you can definitely get more for and find other ways to put that value into your team?
Certainly, by getting Tyreek in a win now, you give yourself more options and more outs, right? In Dynasty, you're trying to give yourself as many outs as possible, depending on which direction you're going. If you're going to be a contender, you obviously want to have as many contending high-level hammer pieces. You don't want to give up a CeeDee Lamb or an Amon-Ra if you can help it. But if you have to pivot, you can pivot off of Tyreek, knowing you still have CeeDee Lamb and Amon-Ra. But if you want to move, if you know that, let's just say, heaven forbid, Kyler Murray goes down and you don't, and your second quarterback, which we don't know, is like a Derek Carr, Daniel Jones type, and you need to go secure that quarterback position, you have the flexibility with having Lamb and Amon-Ra that you could probably move one of them straight up to get yourself into the upper tier QB2, maybe even a back end QB1, depending on the market in that league.
Absolutely. And no matter how high, you are on Tyreek Hill, he does come with some risk, right? There is age.
Of course.
People were trying to get out, and he's one of those guys who he's always going to come off the field limping at some point, right? And then he'll come back and he'll do his thing. If your league has no trade deadline, do you feel like there's a little less risk taking on Tyreek, knowing that those people who are in the playoffs, they might be willing to give you at least this price for Tyreek Hill, going down the stretch?
Yeah, I mean, at minimum, I feel like you could get probably a 25 first down the stretch if he's still producing at the, even let's just say 90% level of 2023, right? Would you give if you know that you have a 111, 112, you're right there, you're within striking distance of winning your title, and this team for some reason falls off, could you not sell that Tyreek for at least a 111, 112 in 2025 to get yourself liquid?
I would hope so.
I mean, you know what I mean? Like, I think that's an option that's on the table, at least later on down the season. So good deal by DEOO. Good job. Well done. It's utilizing that Joe Burrow name and some of the capital that he probably built up to go and get two hammers for his squad. Like, well done.
Well said. Yeah. And I just want to say, like, if you're making that move to get into the Joe Burrow dynasty value and the seconds, like, I get it, but you're not really hemmed in with Tyreek or Kyler, right? I do think it gives you more options just by doing that, right? So good deal. I'm assuming it's D-O. I could spell it out, whatever. But we got some. Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
And I would even say that the Joe Burrow side didn't lose. You're still getting Joe Burrow. You're still getting Joe Burrow, and you're still getting 2 seconds, which are going to be liquid in season. We don't know. Does the Burrow owner have Jamar Chase or T. Higgins? Wants that stack and start 10? That's a possibility. Maybe you just want it. We don't know the full situation of that context. So I'm not even going to rule out that, come down the road, Mighty Rich might feel really good about his Joe Burrow in 2 seconds.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. He's sitting over there. He has Burrow, Daniels, and Baker Mayfield, right? And he wanted to stack up his Chase, and he wanted to get a little more liquid, wanted to move up. Yeah, like I can see it. It's just not going to be me that's going to be the one setting that, I guess, right? But yeah, no, I can see it. So good deal. Good deal to start us off. We got some Vaughn. We're going to get a spoiler alert. We're going to have a lot of Vaughn on this one. So thank you, Vaughn. We got a 12 team start 9, one quarterback, Brandon. Let's get it on. He has the 1-1 looking to go from worst to first. He'll post the deals in order. So the first one he did, Amon-Ra St. Brown. Sent that, or he has received Amon-Ra for Herbert, Jalen Waddle, and the 112. I mean, sheesh. That is a certified haul for Amon-Ra. I will give him that. I feel like every time we talk about Herbert on the show, this is probably the cheapest you're going to get Herbert. And if you're going to make the bet, make it now. Jalen Waddle, I think if I was being like pessimistic, I would say he can be 60% of what Amon-Ra can be for me and what I'm trying to do with that wide receiver position. And the 112, well, you got to put a player to name right now. So little difficult, but where does this land for you? Herbert, Waddle, 112, is that enough for Amon-Ra in your mind?
I think it's probably a right price. Like, I don't want to say Waddle and the 112 is equal to Amon-Ra. It's probably not. Probably Herbert and Waddle for Amon-Ra is probably fair. I mean, I know it's start 9, so you want hammers. You can consolidate, and I can see what Vaughn was doing. He's trying to consolidate into a good piece, an elite piece at the wide receiver position. He's going to build through the wide receivers. He knows that quarterback's probably not valued as such. So he's going to sell off whatever value is in Justin Herbert right now. I think it is. I think folks have I think people are going a little bit too far with the Justin Herbert sell, in my opinion. I know that the Greg Roman offense is not exactly one that is catered to throwing the football with volume, but volume doesn't also equal that he's going to produce. Like I think people are like, Justin Herbert's just going to throw for 2,800 yards. Like, that's not the case.
Yeah.
Like, he's probably more 3,500 to 4,000 passing yards. We're not going to probably see the 5,000 passing yards that we've seen in the past. So even if we're saying that's a 20% hit, his fantasy value has went far farther than 20%.
Yeah.
So I see what Vaughn was doing. I don't necessarily think I would have traded Herbert, Waddle, and the 112 to get Amon-Ra, but I can understand what his process was.
Yeah, absolutely. And the more that I look through, the more that we get closer to season, I just feel like Herbert's probably going to be more efficient. Yeah, the passing volume, I'm not expecting it to be there at least year one, right? But I bet he at least is efficient with it, right? So I'm not expecting, like you said, 2,800 yards, right? 16 and 16. Like, no, that's not how I see this happening. But if this is super flex, not particularly close for me. If this is start 11, start 12, not particularly close to me. But it's the start 9 and one quarterback of it all that really makes me sit with it and try to figure out what I would want to do. 112 and a one quarterback. Yeah, you know, if you could get a future first for that, I'd be pretty surprised, I would guess. But Waddle in a 112, that wouldn't get you to Amon-Ra. And then what is Herbert in a one quarterback, right? He probably falls in that replaceable range that has the quarterback one type upside. So any other format, I can argue the Herbert side, and it's not a bad deal at all. But I think I'm just going to lean Amon-Ra in the start 9 and say, give me the hammer. Let me just pitch my tent here. I'll phrase him. Let me plant my flag here and just say Amon-Ra is the one that's going to get me across the finish line. I can construct around quarterback. I'm moving up from Waddle, and I didn't want to make that pick at 112 anyways.
Yeah, that's exactly where I think that's where I was at, right? Is that exactly. You put two of those pieces together and it's like a tweener. Like, I still feel like I need more. So you put the third piece in there and it's like, okay, well, since you gave me 3 for 1, I can't twist. You twisted their arm too far.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like,
yeah.
When you get those deals where it's like, yeah, the guy's like worth a first, but he's not really, but I'm not going to sell him for a second. So I'm going to ask you for that extra piece. And then you just twist their arm. Yeah, sure. Fine. Whatever. And I think that's kind of how that deal probably evolved to some degree. Like, I'm not doing Waddle and 112 for Amon-Ra. I'm not doing Herbert and Waddle for the 112. But if you throw them all together,
yeah, we can.
Sure, why not?
Right. There's probably, a couple other pieces that got thrown back and forth. Maybe they just came down to this. But no, I mean, honestly, all things considered, it's a fine deal. Right. So love to see it. All right. So then from that deal, I'll read this out. I know it's kind of small. So they then went to acquire Josh Allen, Deebo Samuel, and DeAndre Swift. So they went up from Herbert to Allen, got 2 at least flex-worthy guys plus in Deebo and Swift. They sent away the 2-1, the 3-1, the 4-1, 25 first, a 26 first, and had to throw in that 309 with it. So a lot of one quarterback picks. Clearly they were the 101, like they mentioned, right? They have 101. They were the 101. So they are trying to go from worst to first, like they said, right? 201, 301. Does that equal Swift in your mind?
In a start 9, that's like a 110.
Right.
Like, or 12 team start 9, like start 9. Like, that's, I don't know, man. It's sure 2 and a 3 for a Swift. Sure. Again, what can I get for that 201 straight up? I guess that's really what the question is. Can I get that? Like, 201, what am I getting in 2024? Like, because the draft probably hasn't even happened yet. So we don't even have to think about 2025. So what was that? Like, Jonathan Brooks, he's probably long gone. So we're probably in what, like Blake Corum range?
Maybe Corum, Benson. I'm assuming Ladd's probably gone at that point, right? Like, you're probably that like
Marshawn Lloyd.
Yeah, somewhere in there.
Lloyd, Corum. Yeah. And that just depends on if that league values those running backs. So it's like, do you want DeAndre Swift or you want the Trey Benson, Blake Corum?
Right.
Like,
right.
Yeah. This trade's interesting because of the one quarterback format, right? Because in Superflex, this is like woefully short.
Woefully.
Like you can't, like, all those picks can get me Debo and DeAndre Swift.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm overpaying.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, but with one quarterback with Josh Allen, like, I mean, what's the cost? The 2025 first and the 201?
That was exactly where I was going to go, because I was going to say, I bet at 201, Caleb or Daniels are probably there, right? And in a one quarterback, I can say one of those quarterbacks in a first, sure. Give me the number one.
Maybe JJ McCarthy is right there, even if we want to say that, because I did see in a lot of mocks that we were doing in patreon.com/ALLGAS inside of the Destination Devy box, I did see Caleb going around 107, and then Jaden falling, kind of slotting in somewhere behind them. So let's just go worst case scenario. It's your pick of Drake May or JJ McCarthy.
Yeah. Even if it's at that point, you're still looking at Debo and Swift for 3.141, a 26-second and 3.09. Like, in a start 9, it's I think it's Vaughn's side as we talk it out. Like, it's the gap's growing more and more for me. But if you need picks, you need to split some assets, you need to get younger. Like, I can see the motivation behind it, but as I talk it through, I'm firmly on that side,
The only piece that probably I don't like in that deal is probably the DeAndre Swift. I know you're trying to win now, but at what cost in terms of draft capital did he give up? Because remember, he just got Amon-Ra, so now he's got Josh Allen with Amon-Ra and Debo, which is a pretty good start. Obviously, you're trying to get some running backs in there, but is that the best use of that capital? Like, is DeAndre Swift the best piece that you could get from a running back perspective? Or could you just have held on to the draft capital, maybe the 2024 309, and the 301, maybe I could have kept those 2/3, gave the 26. I'm just trying to think of different ways within this deal that I would have tried to maybe shift, because that's a lot of draft capital. That's a 6 for 3. That's a big flip.
Yeah.
And I'm just trying to think, like, what piece or pieces could I change or omit, like, without seeing the full rosters on both sides. Josh Allen's fine. Obviously, you want that. That's the key piece in the deal. Debo's fine as a wide receiver too in that team with Amon-Ra. It's just the DeAndre Swift to me. It's like, what could I have used to maybe go buy something even lower than DeAndre? Could I go get Jalen Warren? Could I go even further down? Could I get like Jaleel McLaughlin? Could I get a couple of other guys that can fill in that running back room while I'm still building out the rest of the squad? Because in a start 9, you're probably not going to be able to. And I'm not sure, because we haven't gotten to the final parts of the deal, but you're not going to have Bijan and Gibbs too, with Josh Allen, with Amon-Ra. So you're going to have probably a weak section of this team. We know that running backs, you can kind of just churn and burn them.
Yeah. You never want to empty your clip on draft capital just for a running back. And, especially we record on June 12th. I don't want to do that right now, right? Because that doesn't feel great and it limits my options. But it does make sense if I am planning on DeAndre Swift being my running back 1 and or 2, and that's my bet for the year for the start, right? If I can get 3 starts out of DeAndre Swift, I'll blow a second on him pretty quickly, right? If I can project that and I'm built around it. If I have Bijan, Saquon, Rashad White, there's no way I'm sending significant capital, if any capital, for DeAndre Swift, right? It doesn't help me, and it just parks my money somewhere that's probably going to be an expiring asset, right? So let's move on to the next deal, and maybe we can come back to if there's anything else. But I'll tell you right now, looking at this, right? Allen, Swift, Zeke, and we're acquiring Zeke right now. So I can see Vaughn. There was a thought behind it, right? Of I'm going to send these things and get my roster where I want it right now. And then maybe I still have enough of a war chest to be able to make these moves. And I mean, a 25, 3rd, and 4th for Zeke. Yeah, I would love to have the picks in my back pocket for in season. Sending a 2-for-1 for Zeke is tough because we truly don't know what Zeke's going to be at this stage. But again, if you're telling me that I can get 3 starts out of Zeke and that's how my team is constructed, okay, I can send those picks. How do you feel on sending a 3rd and a 4th for Zeke?
I don't feel great about it on June 12th. I'll say that much.
Yes.
I'll say that much.
Yes.
He come back to me on September 12th, and I only have to pay a third and a fourth for Zeke. Sure. There's just not enough clarity right now within that Dallas Cowboys backfield. There's still too much time for somebody to come in and swoop in and take a majority. Like we're all kind of in the feeling that it's Zeke and Rico Dowdell with a splash of Deuce Vaughn.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of where we all kind of feel. You know, yeah, Royce Freeman's there, but to what degree? What does he get? 5-10% of the total snaps for the year? Like we kind of see this more of like, 50-40, and then the last 10 is between Freeman and Vaughn. There'll be some spots where both of them kind of just pop up. And you're like, why is he on the field instead of Zeke in a 3rd and 1? Like, it's just what they're going to do.
Yeah.
And it goes back to the question of, why did you pay what you paid for DeAndre Swift if you were going to go get Zeke? Because, when we look at like Underdog ADP and we look at like where Zeke is going, and we look at what's still available, there's guys like Trey Sermon. There's guys like Justice Hill. There's guys like Gus Edwards, Zach Moss. These are all guys roughly in that same area that I can pay for that 3rd and 4th. And with Zach Moss, I know I'm going to get at least 2 years. Now, Dallas's offense is going to be pretty good this year. So I could see buying into an efficient offense. Mm-hmm. It's just not a move that I'm making, as we record in the middle of June. It's one that I want a little more information from the Cowboys before I pull the trigger on saying I'm going to hitch to Zeke.
Yeah. Nope. And I feel you there. Right. Because I feel like for a 3rd and a 4th, I can get a Zeke equivalent option pretty much anytime I need to, especially, as I'm going down the stretch and I know that my team is winning, I can make that move. At worst, I can wait for some more information to come out and make that bet in training camp. Right. Yes, it seems like Zeke is slotted to take that RB2 spot. I just don't think you needed to solve that RB2 spot today. Right. But we could be looking back, and this is the steal of the draft, and this is why he went from last to first. Right. Because Zeke was a starter. He bet right, and he provided that replacement level plus value all the time. Right. So that could absolutely end up working out. Right. But so you send away Herbert, Waddle, the 112, a slew of picks. You get back Amon-Ra, Josh Allen, Deebo Samuel, Swift, and Zeke. It's a consolidation, but you've consolidated into Amon-Ra and Josh Allen, who, despite no matter the format, they're great assets to invest in. Then you get Swift, Zeke, and Deebo to push your team forward. I would love not to send that 25 first and bet on that right now, especially knowing that I was the 101. But you've laid out your tool. You've made your play, right? So hope it works. Keep building at it. Be active on the waivers. Keep looking for deals as you go. But you know what I mean, Brandon? You don't need to make it look perfect and make it perfect construction right now. Maybe there was some slow play that could have happened, maybe some smaller deals, but all in all, it looks like you've executed a plan.
Yeah, and this is something that we talk about in the Heisman voice chat, patreon.com/allgas. I'll keep pushing that. We talk about cascade trading, right? Where you make one trade and you make another trade and you make another trade and you make another trade and you just keep trading. And sometimes you just have to put the phone down. Mm-hmm. Ray will tell many of us, just put the phone down. And I think the first trade was executed well. Second trade, executed well, but maybe there's a slight inefficiency. Right, with the Swift piece. And then there's the Ezekiel Elliott part. And you're just like, okay, put the phone down. Right? Because, there can be some times when you just overtrade and you put yourself in a position where you look back, like you just said, you look back and you're like, I probably could have maybe moved that asset. I got more information. Maybe I didn't need to send the 3rd and the 4th. Maybe I could have just sent the 3rd. And now all of a sudden I have my 20, because it's not just 2024 assets that are being sold in this deal. It's 2025 and 2026. So now you have leaned all the way in. Now I'm looking at the team based on what's information in front of me, and I'll read it out for those who are going to listen to this. You have Josh Allen, DeAndre Swift, Ezekiel Elliott. I'm assuming that's Justin Jefferson. Yep. Now, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Marvin Harrison, Deebo, Devonta Smith, and you have Mark Andrews.
Yeah.
So you do have some flexibility to get out if this worst the first just completely flames out. But I think that there was a little bit of the case of just like wanting to completely set the team in June when you still got 12 more weeks of information before we get to week 1.
Yeah.
And I think that's maybe something as dynasty folks who are trading in a dynasty market that we have to sometimes be aware of, is that sometimes we overtrade to try and set a squad in the summer months, and we still have the entire summer to go. Like, we're just getting the June 21st. Like, we're just getting a summer. Like, we're just getting mini camps. You still have training camp. You still have preseason. And there's so many more landmines to avoid between now and week 1. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say, well done, Vaughn, but you left yourself without a lot of, unless you got more liquidity, you're going to have to start to move off of your Marvin Harrison, or maybe even that Amon-Ra that you paid 3 assets for, to try and make sure that this worst of first stays in first.
Right. Yep. But hey, if there's a team to make that bet on, it's one that you have insulated value, right? Yep. Allen, J. Jeff, Amon-Ra, Marv, Smitty. Yeah, I feel pretty good in the start 9 rolling in there. I think it almost doubles down. I don't need to have my RB2 figured out. I don't want to blow my 3rd and a 4th now. If that was a 2024, that was, again, 301. I'm probably not doing that either, because I can probably do more with that 301 asset of whoever I would choose there. But if you're telling me like a late 3rd in this year, I have to put name to asset. Sure. Maybe Zeke is the one, right? But probably not the move I'm making on the Zeke one, but I have no issue with the Amon-Ra. And then the Debo, Josh Allen, Swift one, you just have to end up being right? Yeah. If you don't end up being right, you're going to hate it. But if you're right, you're going to love it. And hey, Brad, we talked about, like I said, put the phone down, or, making cascade trades. You're one of the main cascade traders that I know. And one of the leagues that I've seen you do a lot of work in is, Royal Rumble. Why don't you take this one away? Why don't you frame up what Rumble is and the trade you made here with our old man, Trophy Chase? I don't know if you saw the last episode, everyone, but old Trophy Chase made a deal afterwards.
Yeah, so the Royal Rumble is one of the premier Heisman leagues that Ray has established. It's a 14-team, 2-copy, start 11, 25-man rosters. If you know Ray and you know how he plays, the leagues have their own kind of individual league economies. So in this format, tight end, it doesn't necessarily have like a super premium, but the league market is quite high on tight ends, and especially the upper ones, right? So guys like Dalton Kincaid at Sam Laporta have already been traded for multiple first-round level pieces. So I gave up Sam Laporta along with Dontavian Wicks and Sam Howell. I got in return Calvin Ridley, Tyler Conklin, a 2025 first and a 2025 second. So to give a little bit more context, I came out the orphan dispense, dispersal. I built a team just based off of what was left. And I was able to I pulled Sam Laporta out of that. Well, I pulled him in a trade. I traded TJ Hawkinson and a first and got Sam Laporta in a second. So
yeah,
I already have I had the big tight end, and I kind of wanted to deepen some of my roster because I was a little bit thin coming out of the dispersal. So I was working with your previous guest, Trophy Chase, one half of the Overreaction Pod. Make sure you listen to those guys over there. They're pretty smart and sharp when it comes to Dynasty Trades. So knowing that going into the deal with Chase, I knew that I wasn't going to be able to sell Sam Laporta or liquidate him for just market value, because he's going to try to get every last ounce of value that he possibly can. Right. So I had to make a deal, that framework that made sense for both sides, that both of us felt like we were going to be okay with. Right. Because I don't want to sell Sam Laporta for 90% in June, knowing the league economy already has established parameters for these elite tight ends. But I also know that if I try to tax Chase, he's going to run away and not come back. So I had to kind of be very thoughtful when putting together a deal. Now, he doesn't have a ton of quarterbacks, and it is a super flex. So to give him kind of his reassurance to his one starting quarterback in Geno Smith right now, I gave him that Sam Howell. And I did trade him a name in Dontavian Wicks, which has had a little bit of hype over the last few weeks. And we all know within the Green Bay Packers, it's kind of just been a spread out attack. Not one guy is the elite wide receiver. So that gives him another youth asset. His team is very old. And if you've listened to the Overreaction Pod, it makes sense why his team is pretty old because it's a winner. So to give him a little bit of youth there, and then also give him the elite Laporta asset. Now, what I got back was I got Tyler Conklin, who has been a very steady tight end throughout the years, but his value is completely way off.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's like tight end 22 in Underdog, but yet he's producing like a mid-teens, upper teens. So there's a little bit of room there. Calvin Ridley being, you know, the 1A in Tennessee, that's pretty solid there. And I get a first and a second. So I have some liquidity. So if I want to go out and buy some more pieces to bolster up my team and Rumble, I can. Or if I want to just sit on them and hold them, I can certainly do that as well. And now I have 2 firsts and I have 2 seconds going into the 2025 draft. So I gave myself a few more outs by not holding on to Laporta. Do I want to have Sam Laporta? Absolutely, I want Sam Laporta. But at the same time, giving myself flexibility in a best ball 14 by 11 with 25-man rosters, this is also something that can potentially help me out as well. It was kind of one of those, like, you kind of can't bypass this kind of offer.
Absolutely. And you never know when those offers are going to come, right? Now, like you said, the Rumble market, the tight ends have been hot. They've been the thing to move if you have elite tight ends. I mean, I made a move. I invested in an old Trey McBride. You know, I went to town on that one too. So I'm a part of the problem in that league of really bumping up that value. And you mentioned that you moved Sam, or you got Sam Laporta by moving Hawkinson. And was it your first that you moved?
I believe it was somebody else's first. So it wasn't even my own first. So I still have my own first. I wouldn't say my team is necessarily competing. I wouldn't say it's like a top 5, top 6 team in there, but it's certainly one that can backdoor its way to like the last playoff spot. And with our format that we use in many of our Heisman leagues, where we have ping pong balls for all of those lottery picks, I could still finish in the middle and still somehow find my way to a top 2 or top 3 pick. So I want to be competing, but you also want to have as many ping pong balls in the lottery. You don't want to go in there with one when there's 15 or 16 opportunities to get the 101.
Right. I'd agree. And I think I'd classify Ben's pick in that same range, but probably a couple shades closer to the making the playoffs. Right. So 2 picks that could fall in either one of those ranges. And like you said, in a lottery league, you know, you need shots. I don't need specific conviction bets. And looking at Calvin Ridley, Howell, Wicks, you know, I feel like in a 14 by 11 best ball, and a 25-man roster, you have to minimize zeros. So taking on Howell while it's a 14 team makes sense. You know, is a guy who will likely get a start or 2 at least this year. And Wicks, I feel like that for Ridley makes sense to me from a production standpoint. And like I said, Wicks is the name to move right now. If you have Wicks, Streets is hot. So move some Wicks. So what it comes down to me is just looking back at market in the league, would you trade away your Hawkinson for Tyler Conklin and a second?
Yeah, probably. I mean, if I could get a Conklin and a second for a TJ Hawkinson, yes. Because I will, again, in a best ball league, I will let somebody sit on that 0, even though they're going to believe that TJ Hawkinson's going to come back. And he probably will, probably by about week 8, week 9. He's probably going to start the season on pup as he recovers from the knee injury. But that's 7 or 8 weeks that they have to sit on that 0, and they mentally have to sit there and basically play with a 24-man roster in a 25-man league. Like, you just don't like, and I think that's part of the, you know, I don't want to say it's like this. It was a main factor in making the deal with Trophy Chase, but for me with Chase can sit on that 0 with Sam Howell. Now, if Sam Howell plays, because let's say, you know, Geno gets hurt or Geno's just ineffective, and the new head coach Mike McDonald just says, "Listen, we're just going to go with Sam Howell. We traded for him. We believe in him being a backup, but we want to give him a shot." Could Chase move him for maybe a 3rd or 4th in 2025? He could. The question is going to be is whether or not there's actually somebody who's in the market who has a 3rd or a 4th that wants to spend on that Sam Howell. And I'm not sure if that's going to happen, because many times by the end of the season, the people who have the 3rds and the 4ths are the teams that are tanking, and they're definitely not going to be taking on a Sam Howell. So that's sometimes inside of, if you're playing a dynasty best ball league, then you have people who want to take on zeros. Sometimes you just got to let them take them. I want Sam Howell because I wanted to have a third quarterback in a super flex league, but I also don't want to have that 0 on my lineup for 8, 9, 10 weeks. So I'll give him to the person who wants him. If that's the sweetener that needs to make a deal to make it move, so be it. Like, just move, because for every Sam Howell, there's going to be a Jake Browning next year. There's going to be a Joe Flacco. Like, these backup quarterbacks that are laying around in your waiver wire. And Scott Connor has talked about it a lot of times. Like, you know, him and Cody did a whole episode 2 weeks ago on any two QBs on 53, right? Like, many leagues are still have on their waiver wire a lot of quarterbacks that will give you a spot start. And if you are aware of them and you can pick them up ahead of time, let somebody have that Sam Howell. He could go off and it could be great, but sometimes you can squeeze a little bit of extra value sometimes by throwing that quarterback, that backup quarterback that somebody really wants.
Yep. Yeah. And if you know someone values something, don't just say, no, it's mine, I like it, you can't have it. Right? Find a way to work that in. Right? What value would it take for you to move them? And that's something I think that I've learned as I've grown with this community and just grown in Dynasty fantasy football myself, is getting away from being player agnostic and being willing to make moves that make sense if it makes sense, and if it works for both people, awesome. Right? I don't want to be in a spot where I can't move this guy, I like him too much, or I only have him here. Because the solution to that is, one, get an Underdog. Use promo code ALLGAS to claim your first special pick, and first time deposit bonus up to $250. But you can get an Underdog. You can buy some trading cards, or just join more leagues. Right? There's solutions there. I don't want to not make a deal go through because I don't want to move a player. And for yourself to move Laporta when really you just got Laporta, and now you've moved that. I'll say, I can say Conklin a first and a second. First, probably going to end up in a similar range. Conklin in a second for Hawkinson, sure. So maybe spun your tires like a touch there, but you gave up a potential 0 for someone who likely will have a market at some point. But like you said, can you actualize that market? Right? And then send the hopium of Wicks, who should have a couple weeks, love him in best ball. But if you're saying that you think that your team has a shot to enter the playoffs and you want to give yourself that shot, getting up to a Ridley makes a lot of sense to me. So I think this was a really good deal. I think it does make sense for both sides, because now, Trophy Chase, he's got a little bit of flexibility, a little bit of sustainability, where he was really redlining it for a couple of years, right?
Yeah.
And
I mean, and that's the thing, knowing what he has, and I can give some of that context. Like, he has a pretty solid tight end room. He's adding a Sam Laporta to his already Evan Ingram, right? So now he's got this Ingram Laporta pairing that could propel his team as he continues to retool it. He's still got his own first. He's still got a few, his own second and his third. So he's still got some weapons to go by the quarterback to go with the rest of his crusty team to compete. So he's not completely dead out of the water. You could say, oh, well, you should have gotten that second first and should have chopped his legs off. I could have, right? But then I also potentially end up burning that bridge. And burning some outs, because now if I want to go back to Chase, and let's say I have a young piece that comes down the pike because I had some rookies, and I want to say, hey, Chase, you want to throw me that first because you want to try to, get yourself in the race. Now he still has it, and now he can still utilize it. I could still help him, and I can still help myself if I find my team not performing to the same way. So giving yourself sometimes outs within your own leagues, and establishing those trade bridges, like guys like Trophy Chase are sharp. And one thing about sharp people is you got to keep the bridge and the communication lines well established. And then when you do keep them well established, even if they're a difficult person to deal with, they're more than likely willing to make a deal with you because they know that you're at least going to put a reasonable counter on the table.
Absolutely. No, so just looking at this one last time, I mean, if I had to choose a side, I'm probably jumping on the Laporta side, just because knowing what I can do in Rumble with Laporta, I know this is not the last. I know Laporta's not dying on Chase's roster, right? So I want to see what he can do with it, but I think this makes a lot of sense for both sides. I love to see it. I loved this deal when it went through. But yeah, good stuff. Way to get everything on the show here. We're going to jump over to Big Diaz Energy. He was hitting up the DTI5 Discord channels here, going through this one, really giving us a lot of updates. But it's a 12-team start 10 PPR with a 175 tight end premium. He punted year one. He was on the clock. He used Marv, falling to 1-3 to get Lamar. So the draft went Caleb, Jaden Daniels. He was overexposed to Deshaun Watson as well, and he had Mahomes as well. So he traded away Watson, the rights to Marvin Harrison Jr., and Jacoby Myers, and he got back Lamar Jackson and Najee Harris. So if I'm coming out of a punt year one, a 12-team start 10, I do like to get the quarterback situated, squared away. And if I'm rolling in with Mahomes and Lamar, I feel fantastic. Do I need that? Not necessarily, but I think that opens up a lot of flexibility and a lot of options for you. I've seen the rest of this team, so I don't really want to go into that because it's not presented here. But Brandon, if you're on the clock, you're punting year one, Marv to Lamar, adding in the Watson and the Jacoby Myers, all names that we like. Where does this one land for you?
I still kind of like the Deshaun Watson side. I know, I get it. You want to have Watson and Mahomes, or you want to have Lamar and Mahomes. I get it. It's perfectly like start 10. I'm assuming it's got to be super flex if you're feeling the reason to go that way. Because if you're doing this in one quarterback, like, dude, what are you doing?
If you're doing this in one quarterback, yeah. But then why is Marv at 1-3 as well?
Why is Marv at 1-3, right?
Yeah,
so it's like, I'm fine with trading Marv to upgrade a piece. I just don't know that upgrading off of Watson to get to Lamar is what I would do. I would probably want to maybe target my wide receiver room, right? Because now you've taken Jacoby Myers out of it, which probably not going to start in a start 10. Maybe he does in your flex. And maybe he was because you were punting. And to get Najee Harris, again, like, I just feel like the piece that Najee's piece is just sticking out to me. I think that's part of the problem. Because Najee for Jacoby Myers, probably the same. Probably the same value, flex value.
I'll give the nod to Najee if you're constructed in a way that Najee is going to be the one, and you're never going to know when to punch Jacoby in, right? So I'll give the hat tip to Najee. Sure,
and you're leaning at that point on the value of Marv, the perceived value of Marv to get to Lamar. I'm not completely out on Deshaun Watson as many people are. He still was really, really good when he was healthy. The problem was he wasn't healthy. And so he didn't give, the last image that everybody has right now of Deshaun Watson was that Colts game where he was just absolutely awful. He was stone awful, right? That's the lasting image that everybody has right now of Deshaun Watson. And, however you feel about his prior legal matters also probably influences your decision on Deshaun Watson. I'm not out. I would probably just maybe want to get something in the wide receiver room to replace that, Jacoby. Again, I don't know the full roster. You seem to have a little more information on it. And so I'm trying to go off it just straight what I'm looking at and where I'm at.
Yeah.
I still feel like I lean to the Deshaun side. I don't think either side comes out of this feeling bad, right? One side gets Lamar. Great, wonderful. Top 5 quarterback. The other one gets that youth piece of Marv or whatever they ended up taking with it, right? Marv falls to 103. Maybe they don't want Marv. Maybe they wanted Drake May because they believe in Drake May, right? So it's Watson and Drake May for Lamar. Right. That's fine too. Like, I don't think either team walks away from this situation feeling like I got one over on the other side. It's just a preference of, do you want to build, like you said earlier, do you want to insulate your quarterbacks and make sure that room is done? Or do you just want to have, the flexibility of that pick of 103?
Right. Yeah. I don't have the team in front of me, but what I do remember is one, they had the 103, 104, right? And they were trying to make another deal to try and get an AJ Brown with that 104. I don't think that ever actually materialized, right? So there was a plan to try to address wide receiver off the heels of this move. And yeah, I'm with you on Watson, right? And I think that's a good lesson is, what is the general feeling on an asset, right? And what is it going to take to really change that? For Watson, I think there's been a lot of things that have happened, some knucklehead behavior for sure, and some poor outings on the field. I do think if Watson comes out hot and shows flashes of, that previous Deshaun Watson, some people are going to be 2 feet back in, right? And if you're trying to play the best bang for my buck game, I just need Watson to almost be like just a tick better than what we've seen to make that worth it to take on Marv, to move away on Lamar, right? So in my mind, I do think Najee's an upgrade over Myers because if I remember correctly, Najee, again, it's a construction move that makes sense. Having that value in Najee makes sense. It's a health bet for sure, but he will get that value out of Najee much more than he would of Jacoby. What I would have loved a lot more, something like take away Najee, take off Myers, right? Get like a Lamar and then like a Terry McLaurin type, right? For Watson and 103. I feel a lot better about that. I'm getting a threshold receiver, one who could get some value, right? It's definitely a bump up from Myers. You keep Myers in your room, so you're probably helping your construction there unless you're fully overweight. You're still moving off the Deshaun overexposure in a portfolio sense and then getting into that Lamar from Marv. I don't mind it. I remember talking with Big Diaz. It makes sense for his roster to take on the Lamar and then use that quarterback advantage based on what he's seeing in his league. So know your league, lean into it. But yeah, we talked about tear downs quickly at the start of the show, right? Burrow to Kyler, now Lamar to Watson. It truly depends what that Watson is, right? If he's a 40% of Lamar, yeah, make this deal for sure. If he can get up to that 60%, that's when the leverage territory really comes into it.
Yeah, like I'm thinking in my head, like could you do Lamar and like DeAndre if you had like a DeAndre Hopkins level?
Mm-hmm.
Like go a little bit deeper, right? Because you're trying to win.
Yeah.
So can you get that? Can you catch that lightning in a bottle of DeAndre Hopkins and maybe get 1 year plus? Yeah. Right now, I feel a little bit better, at least when I'm giving away my Jacoby Myers. Like I'm getting a slight upgrade at both positions, and I use the 103 to get him. Yeah. Like, I think that's just where, again, we're nitpicking here. We're not. This is not a. This is not an overall fleece. This is just like if you have a similar situation in your league where you're like, oh yeah, I got the Deshaun Watson, and oh yeah, maybe I did have that Marvin. What could I get? Where could I go to? How high could I trade? What do you think is the difference between Lamar? We see it all the time. What is the difference between Lamar and player QBX? This is what we're looking at, and how can you make it balanced so that way you get the upgrade at quarterback, but then you also get the piece to continue the momentum of what you're trying to do.
Right. Absolutely. But no, good deal. Like I said, that's one that can go either way. But really it's a good deal. It's a good structure. Let's find one more to get out of here. And I think no, this is pretty not close for me, but I mean, in a 12-team start 9, Hurts, Tyreek Hill, and Jake Ferguson, it's heading away 101, along with Kirk Cousins, Kendre Miller, and a 26th third. I mean, 101 and Hurts doesn't get it there for me. I'd probably want something. I don't know if you can get more for it, but I would love something more. So 101 and a third for Hurts. I'm trading Cousins and Miller for Hill on the right team, especially if I just got Hurts. It feels like a free Ferguson to me.
Is this a super flex or 1 QB?
1 QB.
1 QB. All right. So
okay.
Now it changes, right? That's why when you were going through it, I was like,
okay.
So let's just say
crank it back. Yeah.
Let's just say 101, and I think it's actually more of the Tyreek side. I think it's still the Tyreek side, but I think it's a lot closer than we think.
Okay.
Right? Let's just say Kirk Cousins and Kendre, or Kirk Cousins in the third. What does that get me? Does it get me Ferg?
Yeah, that can get you.
It's like a 2 and a 3. It's like a 2 and a 3 for Ferg.
I feel like that. Like, if we don't know, do we know tight end premium? We don't know tight end premium. I'm going to assume no tight end premium here, and if that's the case, Ferguson and a third. Can we just cross those off? Sure. We'll go. Kendre. Actually, let's just do Kendre and Ferguson. Easy. Sure. Right. So then it's the 10. So then it's the 101 for Tyreek and Kirk Cousins in the third for Hurts.
right? Because it's Marv or Tyreek. KTC and the dynasty value, they're probably pretty close.
Yeah,
probably pretty close on a one quarterback, right? So then it's Kirk Cousins in the third or Hurts.
Yeah, so definitely closer. I'm still going to be in the Hurts, still on the Hurts side. But hey, that's a good. Hey, know your format, right? And that's how easy it can change.
Yeah, and that's the thing. That's again, it's using the leverage of what you have to try and get what you need.
Yeah,
but at the same time, like trying to be reasonable, right? What part of this deal is unreasonable? There's not, like, right? I can see the thought process behind it. 101 for Tyreek or Marv. There's a lot of conversation with Marv being a top 5 dynasty asset. Well, okay, well, here, let me get the one that's going to try to get me to the win, right? Probably didn't want to move the Kirk Cousins in the third, but hey, if I can nag that Jalen Hurts on whatever proverbial dip there, because there isn't one, sure, great, wonderful. And then Kendry and Ferguson, like the person on the right saw 101. Bright shining light, 101. Saw the hopium and was like, yeah, I'll dump my Hurts, my Tyreek, and my Ferguson, because by the time I'm ready to compete, Tyreek's done, Ferguson's done with his contract, and Jalen Hurts is probably, on the backside of his QB1 days.
Yep. This feels like a deal that Ray would send, right? Like send arguably the best asset.
Yep.
Surround it with things that make sense from a down tier, or just like, things that are a little, have a name, but then you move into the assets you actually want and arguably do the same thing with the asset you're getting back, but getting that bump in value. So
and it looks like he did a few other trades, or at least he already traded a 3-for-1 for JT.
Yeah, for JT.
There were some other things. Yeah, he's got JT, Monty, Jefferson. Again, another loaded squad.
Yeah.
Right. And now he adds Jalen Hurts and a Tyreek on top of it. Now he's got Jefferson, Tyreek, DJ Moore.
Yeah,
if you really wanted to get critical, could you have moved like Christian Kirk instead of Jake Ferguson to keep the Ferguson, right? So you got the tight end and the start 9. Again, ways that you can try to get creative as well. He probably wanted the tight ends. All right, so maybe he could have gotten Kirk if the guy didn't want Kendry Miller. I'd be fine with moving Christian Kirk off of this squad, because how many times is he going to start in a start 9 when you have Tyreek Hill, Justin Jefferson, DJ Moore,
and Smitty? Yeah,
and Smitty, right? Like those guys are starting 99 out of 100 weeks. The only weeks they're not is the bye week. So, sometimes you can use those back end assets to make that deal. Like if the first one doesn't hit, all right, well, here you go. Now you got 101 and Kirk. Okay, I could work with that.
Yeah, absolutely. No, Vaughn, good work. You've had some good trades on the show. Here we go, Brandon. All right, this is what we're ending on. 12 team, start 9, 105, 25 first, and a 26 first, or Bijan MF Robinson. This is a lot of liquid value to put into the running back position, but if there's one to bet on, Bijan could be it. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that I want the first, but if I'm trading the team that already has Gibbs as well, and I'm trading them Bijan, that's at least what it's going to cost them to get it done.
Yeah, it's one of those, like, I don't want to trade Bijan, but I'm getting 3 firsts. So kind of can't say no.
Yeah.
And I'm shipping Bijan out. I'm playing the first class shipping. I'm even getting the insurance at the USPS while I'm at it.
Yes, getting track and everything.
Like 105 could be JD. Okay, it doesn't even matter what it could be. Like you are getting 3 firsts for a running back in the year 2024.
Yeah.
I get it. Bijan Robinson is what he is. He's a top 7 asset.
Yeah.
But 3 firsts? I mean, how many more times are you going to get 3 firsts for Bijan Robinson?
Right.
Realistically, like he would have to be CMC level excellent from now until 2028 to sustain that market.
Yeah.
Like even if he starts slow by the fantasy standards, this price is already knocked by about 50%.
Yeah.
I'm giving you the 25 first and 25 second because people are just going to be off. He's just another guy. Like he's just another running back. He's not that great.
Right.
It's stupid, but I mean, this is one of those deals when it pops in your inbox and you see 3 firsts or Bijan. If you put this on X, people are going to be like, "What?"
Yep. Yep.
Are you out of your mind? Like, but this is what people are doing. And this is why you always send the trade.
Yeah.
Always send the trade. Even if it doesn't make sense. Even if you're like, this is awful. And we've got some channels where there's some awful trades, right? This is why you send them, because there's always that one person that's like, oh yeah, I need the Bijan and Gibbs. I'll send you 3 firsts.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. Sure.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for your service.
Yeah.
Right.
Because I can take that 105 and I can go get whatever running back I want that's not named Brees Hall and Bijan. And I'll probably get about 80% of that production. And I still got 2 firsts.
Yeah. Can you get Achane in a second for 105?
You might have to kick a third.
Okay.
You might have to kick a third.
Right.
I mean, you might, but I mean, it's not that outrageous. I mean, could you trade that 105 for Saquon? Could I get 105 for Saquon in a third?
Oh yeah, I hope so. Right.
You know what I mean? Like, can I get Saquon and another piece?
Yeah.
You know, because we all feel that he's going to probably do pretty well in that Philadelphia Eagles offense.
Mm-hmm.
You know, pick your running back. Can you get Rashad White in a second for the 105? Can you get, just start walking your way up the ladder of running backs. You know, pick the one in that tier, that next tier down that you feel the most comfortable. Maybe you want to bet on Travis Etienne still. Maybe you want to bet on, David Montgomery.
Yeah.
It just feels like one of those, it's one of those trades where you literally, I get it, start 9, you need the hammer, but you also don't need to overpay for the hammer and get the gold spray paint for it too.
Right. That's a great way to put it. Yeah. So trading away Bijan, you already have Derrick Henry, Jerome Ford, Zach Moss, Tyler Algier, Damian Pierce, Tajay Spear. Like, you have enough options in the running back room, right? You don't have the hammer, but yeah, like not even only a little bit savviness. The 25 and 26 first do not belong to the Bijan Gibbs owner, right? Nope. So it's a bit more of a mystery box there. You're getting 3 firsts for Bijan, which again, if there's ever a format to bet on Bijan, it's this one, 12 by 9, right? It's shallow, hammers matter. If this is a start 11, start 12, it's not even relatively close for me, right? Like, but this would be a format where I can tell myself that I could make this bet happen. And if I'm the guy with Gibbs and I really want to just, turn my league out and say, I'm coming at you with both running backs, try and stop me, good luck. But I don't want to spend 3 firsts to make that happen and cut away a bunch of my flexibility just to really take the bet on Bijan. So there's ways to get Bijan. This wouldn't be how I'm approaching it,
Yeah. And that's the thing, right? Like, this couldn't have been the only offer that was made in this process. Or maybe it was, because I would probably start with maybe 2 firsts. Maybe I'm doing 105 and the 25 first, right? I'm in a position to win. I've got Gibbs and I really want to have that Bijan piece. That's fair. But I don't think I'm not spending 3 firsts on Bijan in the middle of June. Yeah. Exactly. If I have to chase Bijan later on in the season because he proves that he is that top piece, fine. I'll choose it and I'll do it. But not right now. That's just not, again, I'll pay the shipping. I'll do the insurance at the whole 9 yards.
Yep. The Uber over. I'll even throw in breakfast at,
sure.
You get the fruit platter and everything. The pancakes on the side. Make it happen.
Yep.
All right. Really quick process move here. T. Higgins in a first. Devontae Smith and a 25 second. Higgins and Smith, similar tiers. I want Smith over Higgins, but I'm going to say Higgins can give me 75% of what Devontae Smith can give me probably on a high end, and you're turning your second into a first. Do you see any issue with this at all?
None. T. Higgins in the first.
Yeah.
Like you said, I mean, we can make a path that if either Higgins or Smith, if the alpha wide receiver goes down on either team, right, you're going to see a value spike on those guys. It's just the opportunity. And give me the first over the second. That's just what it comes down to. Like, even if T. Higgins is hurt for whatever reason in his contract year, I could use that 2025 first and I might be able to buy something close to Devonta Smith.
Yeah.
They're just in the same range of they're about a first. right? Can I go get Debo Samuel with that first if I need to win?
Right. It doesn't feel like the risk between Higgins and Smith is a first gap or even a first to second swap to me, right? Like, so good work. Feels like a 120% to 100% deal. So I like that, Rafi. Keep working the process. And to everyone out there, good trades this week. We did it. We made it through. So Brandon, let them know, where can the people find you? What do you got cooking behind the scenes is your alter ego. And yeah, thank you so much for coming on this week. I really, really enjoyed it.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me on. It's always fun to come and jump on with our DD content team. I'm usually behind the scenes. I'm usually on X over at Destination Devy. I'm usually the guy behind the scenes, putting through many of the tweets, pumping out the content that's coming out. Thanks to you, Ty, and so many of the other guys. You can find me on X over at BG-C. If you want to, hit me up about a trade that went down or you didn't agree with something. There's always going to be a disagreement. That's perfectly fine. I'm currently drafting a bunch of Underdog drafts. Make sure you sign up with the promo code ALLGAS to claim that special pick and first time deposit up to $250. I'm 179 drafts deep, and my affinity as a Giants fan is being brokenhearted by the fact that my highest rated player that I have right now is Ezekiel Elliott. So I'm leaning into that Cowboys offense. So maybe I would be paying a third or the fourth. Maybe that was me. No, I'm just kidding. It wasn't me.
Right.
But I'm enjoying the summer of drafting, because what it's doing is it's actually helping me with some of where the dynasty market feels, and even some folks feel about certain players. You can gauge based on where people are either letting them are either reaching above the underdog ADP, or maybe it's falling behind it. So you get kind of a good sense of where certain players are moving up and moving down, and that can help too when you're making dynasty trades. And that's the thing, is it's accurate. It's reflective ADP based on how people are feeling sentiment. So it's wonderful that we have a resource like KTC. I think using an opportunity like Underdog with their ADP, where there's hundreds of thousands of drafts of plotted charts essentially, where we can just say, yeah, this guy's being valued more than this guy. So make sure you head on over to Underdog, use that promo code, get the special pick, get the deposit up to $250. I mean, they're rolling out contests literally every week. They just released one on Wednesday, and they might be releasing one on the day of this drop. So make sure you have that over there. There's still plenty of time. There's still 3 months till the season. Enjoy the summer. That's really what it comes down to. Enjoy your summer. Absolutely. Whether that's as a dynasty player or, just a football player, because before you know it, take a deep breath, because before you know it, training camp's here, preseason's here, football season's back, and we're all, looking at our tables and looking at our fantasy teams saying, what mistakes did I make on June 12th?
Yep, absolutely. And Underdog, great way to scratch that itch, make some deal, take those bets in a format where you're doing it lottery ticket style versus grinding those dynasty trades, change it up, but you're still learning, you're still growing. Yeah, I think it's very applicable. I agree. And Chase and Cody on the Overreaction Pod did a great breakdown of the difference and the delta between KTC and Underdog. And it's a really, really good exercise, especially for as we're going into like the seasonal league redraft kind of timeline here. So thank you so much, Brand, for coming on. We had a great conversation. I think we broke it down really well, looked at it from a lot of sides, the why behind it. I think we broke it down really well. If you want your trade on the show, once again, patreon.com/allgas. Get in here, please. Underdog, get on there. Keep tapped in with everything DD has going on, destinationdevy.com. Take care. Send some trades this week. Like you said, Brandon, don't be afraid to send the deal. Make them say no. You never know what's going to be accepted. Take care. All the best. We out of this thing. Peace.